Mildred Brown was a pioneer in journalism and a strong civil rights activist. She co-founded, published, and edited the Omaha Star, the nation's largest operating Black-owned and female-run newspaper. Born in 1905 to a prominent African-American family, she received her college degree in 1931, and after working as a teacher in Birmingham, she married Dr. S. Edward Gilbert and moved to Des Moines, Iowa, where she continued her education and founded the Silent Messenger.
So Mildred and her husband had moved here from Des Moines and worked for a couple of other Black newspapers in the city. And they decided to start their own paper, and the differentiation of other papers and the Omaha Star was the Omaha Star reported the good news.
During the 30s and 40s, we had just recovered from the second of two lynchings, and we were suffering from very structural redlining, segregated schools, segregated public accommodations. The time was rich for somebody, some way, to begin to at least tell the positive story about our wonderful community at that time.
Under her leadership, the Omaha Star newspaper became the longest-running paper in the history of Omaha.
Mr. Gilbert decided he didn't want to run a newspaper, and so he left it in Mildred's hands. So while they started it together, she is the person that continued it, she is the person that purchased the building, and she is the person that was here until her demise.
The newspaper really addressed and gave an outlet to all of that positiveness. That's what the Omaha Star initially began to do.
The motto of the Omaha Star is dedicated to the service of the people, that no good cause shall lack a champion, which the Omaha Star is, that evil shall not go unopposed. And I think that was represented in the civil rights fight, and how the Omaha Star covered that, and how we just proudly serve our community for the last 84 years.
Brown was deeply engaged in the fight against racial discrimination. In 1940, she participated in the DePores Club, which was a group of high school and Creighton University students fighting against racial discrimination in Omaha.
During the riots in the 60s, when much of this community was decimated by fires and civil unrest, this building was protected by the Black Panther Party. They stood out front and made sure that nothing happened to the Omaha Star. The Omaha Star was the meeting place of the DePores Club, which was an organization that promoted racial unity and equity. The sign that is out front that still stands today, that big bright red neon lit star, that was a point of hope. It has always been here, and it will always be here.
She also supported education for African Americans by hiring young Black men and providing them with scholarships.
My first interaction with Mildred Brown was preteen. Her marketing strategy, albeit in today's world humble, was to get young kids, put them on the street with the paper. I think the paper was 25 cents. We got a nickel. I'd come by here to make me a few nickels. She was a fun figure to us as kids.
Mrs. Brown was considered a pillar in the community because she upheld the standards of the community. She was a strong person in the community. She gave young people opportunities. She gave them jobs. There in some of the older papers was a junior Omaha Star section, which meant that young people were writing.
In hindsight, she was pretty shrewd. She played the roles that she needed to play. She was very effective.
Brown was awarded a Presidential Commendation in 1960 for her coverage of civil rights and riots in the 1960s, and was appointed as a Goodwill Ambassador to travel to East Germany.
Mildred Brown was flying off to Washington, D.C. to interact with some national figures. That put her apart.
Mildred was very political minded. She always met with political leaders. You saw pictures of her. Many times she'd be the only woman in the meeting. She met with dignitaries from around the world.
Remembered for wearing her signature fresh corsage, Mildred Brown's legacy is one of commitment to community, and to journalism, as well as tireless activism against discrimination.
I am proud to have carried on the legacy of Mrs. Brown, having met her and known what a great person she was, to carry on that positiveness, to be a champion in the community, to report on things that are relevant not only to the Black community but the Omaha community as a whole.
If I could have Kathy Farrell join us on the stage. And Governor, we're going to elicit your support. And Mr. Love, if I could have you join us at the stage, we'd like to have you accept the award on behalf of Mildred. And accepting the award for Mildred Brown and the Omaha Star is Preston Love, who I think most people know.
Thank you so very much. I just negotiated my time to accept this award. We went from the suggested 2 minutes to my suggested 35 minutes. I surely want to, before you start the clock, acknowledge that I want to acknowledge my 2 community senators that are here, Senator Justin Ward, Justin Wayne, and Mr. McKinney. Surely glad to see you here. Love you all. And I surely want to acknowledge a surprise to many of you. I graduated before I received a degree from the University of Nebraska in Lincoln from another very large and executive school, Norfolk Junior College. Yeah, and the president is back there. And surely want to acknowledge my councilman, my city councilman, Pete Festus, is here somewhere. I want you to know that I was not the first choice to accept this award. The publisher and editor of the Omaha Star, Miss Terry Sanders, you might recognize the last name because she is the mother of Simone Sanders. Is this, anybody here ever watch MSNBC? No. That's a tricky question. But she was the first choice. I'm the second choice, but may I say, I was the best choice. And I am the best choice because I am the only one living that I know of who actually knew and worked with Mildred Brown. She was unbelievable. And I was one of the kids that sold the Omaha Star for a quarter. We received our very high pay of a nickel for every paper and she whipped us, get out there and sell more papers. But we sold lots of papers. That was our distribution system. And so I would just say humbly that it was my pleasure in so many ways in my adult life to have known Mildred Brown in my childhood. She was a lady who could not be denied. You should know that when she flourished in our community, it was a time where not only women were discriminated against, but black women were also. And there were very few notable, if any, black business women. She deserves, quite frankly, to be in this august Hall of Fame. I'm glad that you made that decision. We looked up to her and her legacy in great ways in North Omaha, and so I applaud you for recognizing Mildred Brown. And I want to leave you with something. I think I have 2 minutes of my 3 minutes left. Yeah. And that is, this book was written, it's a children's book, written by a lady by the name of Amy Forbes. And she wrote about some of the people who sold the paper for a quarter. And she talked about it, I'm one of them. But if I had the time, and I'm not going to take the time, but if I had the time, I'd read you some of the names of the people that sold the Omaha Star for 25 cents. I can name you 2 or 3, maybe quickly as I close, but one of them is a female billionaire. Her name is Kathy Hughes. She sold the paper for 25 cents and received the inspiration from Mildred Brown and many others. I won't take the time, but I just want you to know, be careful who you ask to sell papers for 25 cents. Thank you so very much.